Hey everyone, this is how far we get in the first part here. Get everything designed and sketched up to see what we want to do with it. I decided to go with the smaller size, and I'll explain a little bit later. Anyway, stay tuned. Hi everyone, this is Kevin with InventSmart, and today I'm going to be doing the first part of the 3D printer build design. And first thing I want to start off with is the glass for the build plate, because what I'm going to do is actually design the 200 millimeter by 200 millimeter standard size 3D printer as compared to my large one that I have, simply because this one is easier to build for most people and it's not quite as complicated as the one I built. So this one's going to be just basically a design for everyone so that they can use it and build their own printer. And start out, I'm just going to design it with the glass size in mind, simply because that's where we need to start with, really, if we're doing this type of printer. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make the glass. It's 200 by 200 and usually about 4 millimeters thick, sometimes 5. Let's use 4 though. So what we can do is duplicate that, and the PCB, the red heated build plate that you see, is 214 by 214, and it's usually about 1.5 millimeters in thickness. I'm just going to get rid of the material on that and color it to red. That's what color it is. Go on the orthographic view. Create a cylinder. The holes for it are 3 millimeter. And they are 209 millimeters apart. So, oops. So they're right on the edge there. So what we can do is duplicate that and make that one negative. Duplicate that, make the Y negative. Duplicate that and make the other X negative on that. So we have all 4 of those there. And we can select all of them. And Control J to join them together. Throw on my screen keys here. Keep forgetting to do that. Move them down so that they're going through the board here. Then we do a boolean. Cylinder, that looks right. Apply that. And we can delete those. Then we have an accurate model of the heated bed. And so we know the dimensions of that there. Excuse me. And so the next most important thing that you need to do is the metal rods that you're going to be using for the linear rails on here. And so let's move the vertices up to 64 because 32 bit's kind of chunky. And these are 8 millimeter. And I'm going to do half the size of what I currently have, which is the 300 millimeter. And I think that's going to be a good size. And I actually tried recording this video, but I forgot to turn on the audio, so it didn't record. So I'm doing it over, so I know some of these dimensions that I kind of calculated out what would work best. So I figured 165 was actually a pretty good dimension there. Cursor to send. Oh, select the cursor. Duplicate that and move it to 165. Duplicate that, move it to negative 165. So there we have the linear rails in a good position. I'm actually going to move all of these up somewhat. Up there would be good. And actually had the hot end and the cache here. kind of off color because it's copied from my other file, which is in Cycles mode, not the Blender mode. So all the materials on here are all the Cycles material. I can delete that and get rid of that later. But so a good thing to do would be to start with this pretty close to where the glass is going to be. Then kind of go from here. And move these down to a little bit because we want to make the bearings that we're going to be using on this. The LM8UU, I looked these up, the dimensions on them. This was a good one. They're 15 by 24 for the LM8UU type bearing. And so what we can do is just take one of these rods here, duplicate it, and just change the dimensions. And then we have the bearing there. And what we could do is Shift S, cursor to selected, duplicate, and then select the cursor, rotate it, and then cursor to selected, duplicate, selected cursor, duplicate, cursor to selected, select that again, selected the cursor, cursor to selected, duplicate it, selection cursor, cursor to selected, duplicate it, and then select the cursor. So we got the bearings there. And for this, I'll zoom in here. This is the center rail one. I like to have these about, move the cursor to selected. I like to have the wall thickness on all of the parts that I use to be at least 5 millimeters. That way we have a thick enough wall which is strong. I've found that 5 millimeters is a pretty good length for anything that we're using. So all of those that we have on this axis we want to move down a little bit so that it's there. And actually I'm going to be making these a little bit bigger, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger there. Delete that now. So there we have the basic design for where the rails are going to be, because these are going to be moving along this axis and this is going to be moving along that. We don't have enough room for the print head here to have enough clearance for it to move around and everything. I'm going to join these two together. Okay, there we go. And so the print head's going to be here because it can't be right in the center for the filament to go through, because you have all these bearings and everything in the way. So it's probably going to be about out here. And so if it moves, it's going to have a shorter distance over here. Or actually, on this side it's going to be a little bit tougher for it to be. So the build plate and everything is probably going to need to be moved over a little bit. Let's see, if we go here, we have all of these here. Let me select them all just to kind of show you. And for now, I'll just group them together for now. And select those together. If this all moves together, edge of the build plate's going to be there, and we just need to make everything so that right here is not too big on this build there. So just deselected everything. So for the dimensions that I have, these rods and everything, should be enough clearance for the build plate to fill the full thing without any interference with the print head and everything to be in the way. So we can select all of these. We want to have the print head kind of down below where this is going to be to have it have airflow. You could put it up here, but this rod will be in the way, and bottom rod will be in the way that way too, so that should work. So what I want to do next is kind of build the frame, and I'm just going to make it basically a miniature version of mine, but with the same frame material. And to do that, I'm just going to move the cursor there, make a cube. I used 3/4 inch, so 0.75 times 25.4 is 1905. Just make that all the same. Then duplicate that, and 1 divided by 8 times 25.4 is 3.75. And so we have the 1/8 inch thickness of the material there. Just zoom in and, whoa, where'd it go? Try to get it as close as possible here, just for accuracy. Zoom out all the way. Then we can edit this. Take a loop there. And a loop there. So we can zoom in on here. Match that up with this. The steel is actually not going to be this accurate. It's going to be a little bit thicker there in places. But just for the sake of accuracy on here, we can design it so it's pretty close to exact. And that's about good there. So now that we have that, we have that selected. We can delete that, edit this, select both of these corners there, delete that, just focus in on this. Then we see we have open faces here. What we can do is just select all of these here, press F, create a face, F, and then we have a face, then we have our angle iron. And so for this, kind of want to have it somewhat centered on both ends of the both of the rails on here. And so it's about 175. And I like to round everything up to kind of an even number just to make it seem better there. And figured 450 would be probably a good height to have everything. So we got that there. I want to give it a little bit of room on top. So that one's going to have the belt there too, so yeah. And so what we can do is move the cursor to the center and spacebar, set origin to 3D cursor. Go up top view, duplicate, rotate 90, duplicate, rotate 90, duplicate, rotate 90. Then we have all of them perfectly spaced around there. Then set origin to center of mass. So those are all centered now. Duplicate this, rotate 90, negative. Then move that to X0. Actually, not X, Y0. Go there. So now that that's center, we can size this down to where it needs to be. And I want it to be just a little bit below that. Grab it, move it over, because it's not going to be exact when they're touching. So we can duplicate that one, rotate 80 degrees, and just move that one over here. This doesn't really need to be exact at all, it just has to be kind of close. And then those are a little bit high above there where it needs to be. Move these both down at the same time. Then we have the size on those. We can duplicate and then rotate X 180 degrees to flip them upside down. And zoom in and move them down a little bit. Then we can select all 4 of these. I hate it when I do that. Excuse me. Okay. Why is it selecting that one? Okay, select all 4 of those. Duplicate, rotate 90 degrees with the Z. And go to the other side view here. On these ones we're going to have to move up on the Z axis. Select both of these. Excuse me. I'm having mouse issues right now. Move that down. And zoom out. And so we have the frame here. And see how it's clipping right there? Causes that is the camera has problems. So if you go over here on the property tools, I'm going to make that bigger. That stops happening. I have to zoom out really far for it to start doing it then. So that looks pretty good. We got all the different dimensions there set up. So the print height is going to be whatever this is down to here, because we're going to have the stepper motors and everything down here, so it's probably going to be about here to here, which is well over 200. It's probably about, actually let's just figure that out. Rotate, there's 200 there, and if we size it, it's about 280 almost. That's not too bad. So that looks like the printer that we're going to have, but I think that's going to be it for this first episode here. Got quite a bit done today. We've got the frame designed and the bed and the glass and all the bars where they're going to be. So it looks pretty good there. So next time we'll get the corners made and the other things here made. Maybe more. We'll see. It all depends on how long I spend on working on it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.